What's going on out there this fine Tuesday in MECA land, everybody? How we doing? We're doing all right out there this evening. I'm about 5 minutes late, I guess. But hopefully everybody's doing all right out there this week. Um, I don't have a whole lot. A couple of little updates on the web stuff. Um, they're still working on that. Obviously, I think I've tried to tell everybody it might be another 30 to 60 days before we really start seeing some progress. But they are working on it. Um, like I said, I think the most of the membership stuff's still working like it's supposed to. If you have problems, shoot us a message. We'll get you figured out. I think that's mostly what I got on the web stuff. The sound pressure rule book is already posted. I got the green light from Tony this weekend over last night when we had our web meeting. So all my sound quality guys should be seeing the sound quality rule book up here in the next, hopefully in the next few days here. I'll try to make a post when he lets me know it's up there. But I did send the final revision over to the web guy last night. So we should be seeing the sound quality book soon. I'm pretty deep into dueling demos right now. Got it going, I think. Still got to talk a few things over with some of the guys and make sure I'm not missing anything there. And then we'll get the dueling demos book up as well. Show and Shine will be getting overhauled a little bit, and then Ride the Light and Mecha Kids will come up. There's not no changes there, so they'll be back up as soon as I update the dates. So all the rule books should be up, hopefully in the next week or two here. Sorry about all the wait, moving, and I don't know, the web site being a little wonky's kind of got me behind schedule a little bit this season, but other than that, I think things are starting to come together. It seems like anyway. So, looking forward to it. How we doing out there? Is my chat working? You guys out there? Somebody say something so I know my chat's working. Maybe it's not. Let me put on my phone and see if I'm missing stuff. No, I see you. Okay. All right, now I'm getting it. All right. What's going on, Mr. Mayo, Mr. Chad, Mr. Steve, Mr. John? Something. What's going on, Dan? How you guys doing this evening? So I got Mr. Steve Head in the background here. I'm going to bring him on here, and we're going to have a little competitor talk with him. I think everybody knows he's been one of the guys helping us on rules and things like that, and judging every once in a while here and there. But tonight's going to be mostly just about, sound quality competition and him as a competitor. Since I've been bringing on world champions and club award winners. What's going on, Mr. Cassidy, Mr. Martin? How you guys doing? So I think we had Nathan on last week, and this week Steve Head. So I think that's probably, two of sound quality's heavyweights there. So hopefully my sound quality guys are tuning in, and maybe, some of you guys that might be interested can maybe learn something. If you got questions, ask them and we'll try to answer you. And otherwise, I'm going to get him on here and start kind of talking about his competition history and all that good stuff. So give me just a second here, and I'm going to bring in Mr. Steve. All right. How you doing tonight, Steve?
Doing well. How are you guys doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. I can't complain, not yet, anyways.
All right. What's up, everybody?
So I got Steve in the house. He's a he's a pretty funny guy too. Don't get him going.
I'm
But
pretty funny, pretty wacky.
yeah, so
Most of the guys that know me, they already know that.
yeah, I'd say that if they know you, they probably do. But let's see. I guess if you guys got questions, shoot them. But until then, I guess I'll kind of ask some general stuff, and we'll see what what we can learn off of Mr. Steve this evening. So I guess the
Okay.
first thing I'll kind of ask you is, how long you've been doing this car audio thing, and what got you into it? How'd you get going? All that good stuff.
Right. Well, in the 80s, back in like 85, 86, I was big into the new old school rap game. Um, everybody at my high school was getting into bass and discovering sound subwoofers at that time. So by the time I was a senior in high school, and this was 1987, if you didn't have subs in your car, you weren't shit. So that love of music combined with cars and performance kind of, you know, fueled my interest over the years of getting into combining both of them. And once I got my shit together, education wise, I got my first new car, and that was a '94 Honda Civic. And
Okay.
I had spent the previous decade balls deep in every major magazine publication you can imagine: Car Stereo Review, Car Audio and Electronics, Auto Sound and Security, everything I could get my hands on. I had been to spring break several times, Daytona Beach Soundcrafters events, and really got hooked on wanting to do uh, a competition sound system because I was blown away by all the installs that I used to see. And one of the things that really drove me was I was seeing an area where people were dabbling into different materials in their installs, and the painted fiberglass thing was just starting.
Okay.
And I knew that I wanted something like that in my new car. So, I had also done all the research. So, like a lot of the old school guys, I knew those buyer's guides that came out every year, front and back. I was studying specs and studying amps and studying equipment and looking for best frequency response and all that shit. Stuff that's elementary now. But the point is that we didn't have much back then in terms of resources. And aside from the West Coast guys winning all the competitions, you didn't really know much about how to achieve sound quality back then. So um, I enlisted the help of a couple of installers down at a local Sound Advice in Tampa off of Fowler Avenue. And we decided we were going to install some Oz Audio equipment because I had grown fond of and befriended the owner and the distributor of Oz Audio at the time, Mr. John Walton, and he was going to help me, get into the sound quality thing. In fact, he was instrumental in getting me into my first Spring Break Nationals event, but more on that later. So I knew I wanted Oz Audio. I knew I wanted Alpine for the source, Alpine for the changer, and Rockford Fosgate for the amps because the DSM amps just hit the market and they were the latest craze. So I got, all the funding together to get all these stuff, piecemeal and whatnot. And um, went down there and had a guy named Dennis Smith help me design um, a special, uh, I guess it's a series tuned band pass for two Oz Audio 10-inch subwoofers. Now, this type of enclosure was something that the engineers at Oz Audio were dying to see in the lanes, and it hadn't been built to that point. But it's basically a ported box firing into another ported box. Um, it's like a fourth order with ports in the sealed chamber. Okay, so by doing that, we were able to get a 9 dB efficiency peak and a really wide bandwidth. And Dennis helped me figure out how to get that box in that Civic and port the output of the box up through the rear deck. And I learned the techniques from him of how to do fiberglass molds by hand. And that was the start of it. I showed up to Daytona in 1995 with a green Honda Civic with 14-inch wheels on it, with a badass Oz Audio front stage and a badass Oz Audio subwoofer enclosure that people were freaking out about. All you saw were the tins behind the plexiglass in there. And I was still hitting, back then we still had to do SPL. So out of 2 tins, I was doing like a 136 out of a 140 cap. So I was up there, and that was just off of a Punch 200. But that was my first show, and that's what set the hooks in car audio competition, and that started my in-depth learning of sound quality. I'll be the first to tell you that I didn't know shit about sound quality until the 2000s. I didn't know a fucking thing. Pardon my French. Because back then, it was all about chasing points on the score sheet, because you had to do install, you had to do sound pressure, you had to do RTA. So guys were, buying the 30 band Phoenix Golds to maximize RTA points. We were buying, more powerful amps and Accu matches and all of these things to change impedance, drop the ohm load, and get more power out of the amps running the subs. And we didn't give a shit about port noise. We just wanted bass. We wanted to hit our numbers, but still sound good. And it wasn't until probably, the late 90s that there were certain cars that influenced me and geared me toward that next step in achieving proper sound quality. Because, at first it was like every week or every month I'm changing something in install, trying to maximize install. I'm remolding kick panel, putting extra triggers in the sails because the sound judges says my stage is rainbowing, or stuff like that. And like I said, it wasn't until late in the game that I learned anything about sound cue, real sound cue.
Right.
So fast forward a little bit. Like I said, there were certain cars that really blew me away. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get to hear a lot of those West Coast cars that I had idolized in the past, as well as some of the other ones, like, for example, Todd Crowder's S10, or Mark Fukuda's Blazer, or let's see, I did hear Jerry Ziegler's CRX, but some of the ones that really stood out for me in the early days were Mickey Brone's Eclipse, Dale Fontenot's T-Bird, Earl Zalsmer's BMW, the first iteration, the one with the 4-inch mids, or 5-inch mids, no, 4-inch mids that came up on the elevators. J. Ed Arzadon's Purple Civic with the ODR setup. Other guys like Larry Chidgner and Steve Cornell, who were in my same wattage class, they were a little bit ahead of me in terms of experience by that time, but they were the ones I was looking up at when I started. And over the years, I got to hear these cars, and I got to take in all the feedback of other people on my own car and figure out where my shortcomings were, and tried to do sort of a conglomerate of all of this advice I had received year after year of, not making the podium at finals, not making the podium at finals. I'd go to finals and I'd end up 7th place, or I'd go to finals next year and I was like 6th place in sound, but 4th place in SQ plus. Well, that's not good enough. I want to do better. I want to do more. Meanwhile, you got Gary Biggs 1st place in my class. You got Steve Cornell, Mickey Brones. It wasn't until 2003 that I actually had something to compete against those guys. So that's how late in the game I was to catching up to them. 2003.
Was that did you win a championship that year? Was that your first championship?
That was my first IASCA championship in the pro. By that time I was in the pro class, 301 to 600.
Okay.
And yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. At that time I had sponsorship from DLS, and I had a lot of their backing. Of course, my own shop and the Audio Nuts guys were instrumental in making that happen. We were really killing it in terms of a shop, in terms of putting out quality vehicles, doing sound quality competitors installations. And I guess we could talk about my shop. But
yeah, I was that when you said that, that's where I was kind of gonna go next. Let me say hi to a couple people here real quick. Mr. Brandon David, Wallace Wentworth, Philip Schleybaugh, Chris Gamble, and Joe. How you guys doing this evening? I thought I saw Wallace asked if you were ready to sell him his car or your car.
which one? Which one do you want? He told me he wanted the Blazer once, and then he told me he wanted the Aspen once. You want both of them, Wallace?
So I know I've seen the logo and the Audio Nuts thing. So I assume since you brought that up that I guess you used to have your own shop going on there. Is that what that's all about? So
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
okay.
Well, this became an obsession in 95 and 96. And, I was a DIY guy once I cut ties with the Sound Advice people. So I was doing my own thing, modifying the car, making it, a higher level of attention to detail, higher level of wiring behind the scenes, started doing the photo albums and all of that stuff. I did get featured. Let me see what year that is. I think that's 1998 over there. I can't see because my eyes are going bad, but that featured, my first feature with that Civic is in Car Audio and Electronics 1998. But at that time, it was myself and my cousin Bobby, and everybody knew him as Effin' Bob, or he goes by Robert Hillgartner. But it was him and I, and we turned my garage into a little install bay. And I also helped get him into sound quality. We did a system in his S10, which really blew people away in 98 when it debuted at spring break. But he and I did the installs ourselves. And in 1999, we were thinking, well, shit, if we're so good at doing these installs and people are like really freaking out when they see subwoofers in molded doors with EQ 230s in the door panels, looking like the factory made it, eights in the kicks, blow throughs that are molded into the into the bed with painted fiberglass and plexi work and all kinds of neon. Why don't we get into, doing some custom install? And it started out really small in a little 1,000-foot warehouse that basically had a little office space, a bathroom, and about 900 square feet of warehouse. And, we set up work benches and set up a table router, a couple pairs of sawhorses, got some Bosch tools, and made it happen. And it really, really took off. It was pretty amazing. Had a good run from, I would say, 2000 to 2006. At that time, people that know me probably already know this, but I have been an X-ray tech since 1992, and that's what funded this obsession. Car audio is great and all, but somebody's got to pay the bills, and that's what my radiology license got for me.
Right.
So I kept doing the radiology thing on the side and did audio nuts like during the day. So I arranged my schedule and did 3 to 11 in X-ray during that time. And of course, I had weekends off so we could hold shows. And no offense to you guys, but you guys weren't around in my area back then. So I started out with Terry Floyd and Iasca, and I was hosting local shows for SoundQ at Audio Nuts. And then same time, I'm still competing nationally and trying to win a championship going to world finals. And that time it was world finals for both Iasca and USAC. I think they combined in 2001 or something. I'm not sure, but they had like a joint finals. They got together and that's what we tried to do is actually, no, I take that back, because in 2003 it was still separate. We'll get back to 2003 here in a second. Man, all this talking is giving me a freaking frog in my throat.
Yeah, it'll do that.
So during that time that Audio Nuts was kicking, I mean, I had several guys. I had Dwayne Bowlers, Scott Ward, Kenny McCullough, Bobby Hilgartner, Joe Morera did some work with us, a few times, Hollywood Joe. We did all kinds of stuff. We got into the Select Products Installer Challenges. We actually won 1 year in Kansas City for Best Sound Cue, but the other team got Best Install. And then the following year, we went to Las Vegas and did the Installer Challenge the first time ever at CES. And we won that as well. So that was a blast. It was definitely difficult. I've got plenty of stories about that. But it was myself, Kenny McCullough, Scott Ward, Joe Morera, and Jason Cabal from Orlando. We actually threw all the tools in the dually, took a small trailer and packed that thing to the gills. It had a topper on it at the time. And this was the first dually. This was the old silver one. I think it was a 1998 or 1997 Dodge Cummins 12 valve. Headed out to Las Vegas, busted ass, kicked ass. I've got all kinds of pictures. I need to post those pictures actually, but all kinds of pictures. But basically, it's 48 hours. Take a brand new car, put a sound cue system in it, and compete against the other team in sound quality, install, and overall performance.
Right.
So we're out there doing painted fiberglass in a freaking parking lot in front of CES, and had spectators the entire time. It was awesome. It was awesome. But we had completely painted door panels. We had motorization in the back, and this was all in 48 hours. And we did really, really well at that one.
That's
Really well.
awesome.
Yes, sir. But I was featured in several magazines over the years. In fact, I can't even remember how many there were, but in 2001 specifically, Bobby and I decided to take the Civic to the next level. And, you know, at that time we were seeing the crazy stuff that Henry Wernega did in Earl's BMW. We saw the crazy stuff that the Shui Civic from Japan was doing with all this, these horns molded into the bottoms of the dash, and these ribbon tweeters molded into the top. And we were like, okay, if we know how to do all this crazy fiberglass, why don't
Right.
we do something really crazy, and let's show these people how to do it. So I didn't quite get it done for 2000 finals. That was Oklahoma City. All right. I didn't quite get it done, but I decided to bring it anyway to show people. Now, this is still when I didn't really know the ins and outs of pro level auto sound. Okay. But basically, we took the gauges and moved them to the center and made a completely fiberglass dash. I put Focal tweeters up in the A pillars, and we did a mid-range, a mid-bass, and a sub on top of the dash on each side of the dash, firing up against the windshield. So there were
Right.
two 10s, two 7s, and two 5 in molded fiberglass. Now, in retrospect, it looked like an abortion, but it freaked people out when we showed up to Oklahoma. Now, by the way, that's the year that Bobby won his first championship. That was 2000 with his S10. But I just brought mine. I didn't finish it. It wasn't tuned. We tuned on it a little bit at the show, but I basically wanted to show some of my mentors what we were working on. Those mentors include Dale Fontenot, Nick Wingate, uh, Mark Eldridge. Those guys that we were idolizing,
Right.
and they gave me a lot of feedback at that show, but also gave me some pointers. And as soon as we got home, Bobby and I took that dash out and said, okay, this ain't going to work. Let's start over. So we ended up doing IB10s in the kick panels, and we did the mid basses and mid ranges on the same baffle on each side of the dash, and left the tweeters in the pillars. And that's the setup that got me all the press. That won 2001 Car Stereo Review System of the Year. First time winning spring break. I came in, I think, third at finals that year because I still had Biggs and Mickey Brones in the class, or maybe it was Steve Cornell. I can't remember specifically, but I think I came in third. Now that was using Focal drivers,
Right.
but with that debut at spring break, people were literally it was like the talk of the show. They couldn't believe the amount of bass coming from the front of the car. I mean, granted, it wasn't as good as Earl's BMW, but it had so much cone area in the front. I was able to get dynamics levels that the other guys limited to 600 watts couldn't get to. Okay. Plus, it was set up like Earl's car, where we didn't really give a rat's ass about the passenger seat, but we maximized the driver's seat in terms of the timing and everything in the phase. And it really blew the driver away. The passenger got decent tonality out of it, and they kind of averaged the scores. But Some of them even loved it from the passenger side, and it was crazy. I mean, Bobby and I, that was the first year we were using the Sony C90 and the 4000 combo. That's the outboard processor and outboard DA converter combination with the little joystick remotes. So that really brought a step up from the Alpine stuff that we were using previously. And yeah, it was good times. I could go on and on and on. I feel like I'm just gushing at the mouth over here.
Right.
Let's
Let's see here.
let's check the
Yep.
comments here.
What's going on, Miss Whitney, Mr. Beard, Mr. Sindel, Mr. Billy Gunn? You guys
Billy
got?
Gunn.
Yep. It looks like he said hello.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any questions right this second here. If you guys got questions for Mr. Steve, obviously, pretty much a lot of history, a lot of knowledge here. So if you got questions and, you're interested in the sound quality part of what we do over here, one of these, this guy here is one of the guys to pick his brain. And what's going on, Mr. Skaggs? And I guess maybe if they're not, so we kind of talked about, oh, he said sell the Aspen.
Yeah. So the Aspen is my it's my first car from high school, and that's the same exact color. That's the same exact body style that I was going to high school with home audio speakers sitting in the back seat because I had to play Beastie Boys and Run DMC pulling into the school parking lot.
Right.
Okay. I had, huge boxes in that backseat area with like pile 15s and those stupid little piezo tweeters from Radio Shack running passive crossovers in the box and shit. Just, we didn't care. All we wanted was stuff that made those bass notes because the bass notes were something that were new, and we didn't experience that like in the skating rink. I mean, sure, the skating rink sounded good. Everybody back then was into the roller skating thing. But when you heard a car with that bass note traveling and you heard it before you saw it, that's what all the girls wanted, man.
Right.
That was the shit back then.
I had a teacher in high school, and obviously that's kind of when I got into it, and I there was probably 4 or 5 of us that had some pretty loud cars, but he would come into classes, and as soon as he'd see me, he'd like stop the whole class, and he'd be like, "What more could a young boy want? A car that goes brr, brr, brr." And he would hang pictures of the magazine pictures and stuff up in his room and make fun of us.
Right.
Yeah. But I know what you mean there. Billy said, is the Blazer retired or being reborn? Trophy, yellow, smiling.
So the Blazer is currently sitting in my second garage, which is about 25 feet through that wall right there. And it's being redone. It's being redone. I think there's a chance that we might see it over the summer. But for right now, I'm not sure. I don't want to bring it back out unless we're on an entirely different level. I mean, I think it's run its course in its current configuration. So I'm doing some stuff to get more wow factor, and this is the ultimate sound quality that I'm after. So we'll see.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been chasing it for a long time.
Yeah.
What's going on, Mr. Swears, Mr. John Smith? He said running sound at a skating rink is how he got started. Billy said that's great news.
Nice.
I guess I'll hit you with another question now that I've heard at least you've got two vehicles that do sound quality. So how many vehicles do you currently have that do sound quality? And how many vehicles have you gone through in your competition career that you competed with?
That's an excellent question. So I had the Civic up until 2009.
Okay.
So it was a 94. So I had the Civic until 2009. And that's what made me put my name on the map in terms of car audio competition and car audio in general, was that car. After that, I got the Aspen restored, and that got a system in it in 2013-ish, 14-ish. But in 2011 or 2012, I've got the Blazer. And I kind of did the Aspen and the Blazer together during the same years. Um, the Aspen was, when I had it back in high school, it had a ripped up bench seat that looked like Mexican wallpaper. It had a slant six, which didn't have any cojones, and it had bias ply tires, if you can believe that, with wore out leaf springs in the back. So I spent a little bit of money and got that thing restored. The restoration place did the body work, the paint work, brought it back beautiful factory. They call it caramel tan metallic. That's the
Okay.
factory color. Um, did bucket seats, which I always wanted, and then did a V8 swap, which also always wanted, with a nice 904 transmission behind it, an 8 1/4 rear end with some gears in it. I mean, they're mild highway gears, but they're, it'll still scoot a little bit if it needs to.
Right.
Um, and started out with the Aspen. I wanted to do a simple 3 speaker system. So I got some Thiel point source coincident 6.5s and an Alto Mobile 10, and did the 10 in a down firing console over the transmission hump up front, and one coincident driver in each kick panel. And it did really, really well in 2012. We went to Spring Break Nationals. Um, I did I think I did pretty well. I did not win because the stage was a little low, but it still scored very, very favorably, and everybody liked that upfront bass and couldn't believe that it was 3 speakers and a single 4-channel ARC audio amp that was doing it. So I
Right.
had to pop the trunk, and there's a 4150 XXK sitting there. Now, of course, I had the Sony C90 as the source with 4000, as the outboard DA converter, so I could do time alignment and phase and all that stuff. But even that was not as advanced as the processors of today, so I was still limited. But I
Right.
just wanted to show what could be done with 3 speakers, and this was literally 3 speakers. And I think I got like fourth at spring break. I mean, that's pretty substantial
Right.
right out of the gate, against cars that had way more in their install. But the car itself is kind of like a showpiece. I mean, it's in damn good condition. There's only
Yeah.
one little scratch on it. I mean, it's beautiful. And it's gone through a few iterations of install upgrades over time. But um, I missed one car. Um, my original big meat, the green one, the 2004. When I was running Audio Nuts, I got that, and I also got the big trailer that you see today at the
Right.
show. And they were matching dark forest green metallic. Um,
Mhm.
but that truck started out, I had a little DLS system in it at first, but then JBL sponsored it. So I did a full JBL install in there. And that first big meet, that did very well as well. I, I think I did win spring break with that system when I put the Pro Audio 8s in the kick panels. That was something that I did for that spring break 2012 show. But before that, I had the GTI 10s in an isobaric center console in that thing, vented forward. So you lifted up the armrest, and through the plexiglass, you saw the two cones sitting there, and they were wired push pull. So the
Right.
sealed chamber was on the back woofer. Underneath that cone was a sealed chamber, and under the cone of the front woofer, it was open to a vent up front. So they worked push pull under a piece of plexi that was about an inch up above them. That console was badass. I can't tell you how many people remarked on how ingenious that enclosure was. But in the back, I had two GTI 12s and a cut through ported inside of a fake toolbox. So you lifted up the fake toolbox lid, and there was a pair of 2200 Crown JBL amps. One was for the subs up front, and one was for the two 12s in that console. And then under the back seat, there were the front stage amps, and I was running the a prototype of the MS8 that Gary Biggs and Andy Waymeyer um, were using as sort of a beta test. Um, Andy actually tuned that truck for me, and we ended up. Um, it's a funny story. I don't want to get off track here, but I'll get back to that in a second. But ended up doing really well with that truck, with that setup. Um, Fast forward a few years, when right before I got rid of the Civic for good, um, the Car Toys uh, series of money shows started out, I think, in first heard about it in 2007, but the T-Town Invitational, which was in Tulsa at Car Toys, was this huge show where everybody was going to for sound cue. And this was 2008. This was over the summer of 2008. And my Civic was on its like fourth or fifth install iteration. And believe it or not, it was not the crazy dash. It went back to a factory dash with kick panels. But I had learned at that time how to make that thing sound good. And it was on a whole new level. So I took that and the green big meat truck out to Tulsa, and I entered both of them. And I was crazy at that point. I mean, I brought generator with me. I brought an external air conditioner because it's the heat of summer in Texas. The only other person with an external AC there was Mark Eldridge's NASCAR. I'm like, screw that. I want my judges comfortable. So I'm wheeling a generator through the lanes. I had the hood of the Civic off. I had the duct of the AC unit piped through the cowl, blowing out of the vents when the judges are in there. That system ended up winning the entire show in the Civic. Mark Eldridge was second. Jason Seiner was third. And guess who was fourth? Me in Big Meat. So I got first place and fourth place in the money at that show, and it was Awesome. Fifth place was Wayne Watkins. Sixth place was, I think it was Andy, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure, but there had to be at least 30, 35 people there competing in that show. And that was a huge deal. A huge deal. Um, I love being the guy that shows up with something that makes everybody talk at the show.
Right.
And that was a statement year. That was a statement year. Um, I went back to basics in terms of install. Did proper kick panels, put subs under the seats up front. Everybody thought, oh, that's so stupid. Why would you have free air subs mounted in your floor? Well, it's because I want to win, MFer. That's
Right.
why. And because you can't do it. So I did it. And, I maintained a stock looking dash. It was very unassuming, except for the C90 that was in the dash. And there was grill cloth covering the speakers, and it was a 3-way kick panel. Okay. And that thing imaged in both seats like a mirror. And maybe one day I'll bring something like that back, just to show that you don't need center channels to achieve two-seat, proper two-seat.
Right. So I think I saw a question up there a little ways. I think somebody asked, I guess, how you feel about sound quality competition as far as if it's easier or more difficult, than when you started versus now. And, I know things have changed, but I'm sure your knowledge is better. So it's kind of a loaded question, maybe, but um, somebody definitely asked what you thought about competition then versus now, and whether it was easier or harder, I think is what they asked.
Well, I think that's got to be taken in context. Um, you're comparing an apple to an orange, in my opinion. Um, Today, with the exception of a new push by IASCA to make everything two-seat again, um, largely it's been a driver's seat only playground. And that came along as a spinoff of the street class in the mid 2000s. If you guys will remember when IASCA did the street class, now MECA has always been a single seat from its inception with two-seat as an option. Um,
Right.
One of the things that I see nowadays is people are trying to do two-seat without real two-seat cars. Now, I
Right.
know
Yeah.
that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way, but that's the truth.
Right. No,
It was
I see
way,
quite a bit.
way harder to try and do it back then. First reason is the equipment wasn't as good. Second reason is the DSP um, topology, circuitry, whatever you want to call it, capability. We didn't have it. In fact, in the early days, it was all analog. Okay.
Right.
And people don't realize what it took and what we were trying to do to get stereo imaging in both seats, playing with polarity.
Okay. I was going to say most of that was probably done with phasing at that point
Yeah,
in some way, shape, or form.
right? Gain structure, crossover points, crossover slopes. I mean, you were really limited on the equipment that you were using in the early days. Now, in
Right.
the mid 2000s, we started to see, more capable things. And I can throw out there, Image Dynamics was trying to develop the ID1, which was supposed to be the end all be all processor. That never came to fruition. The MS8 was supposed to be you know, the next coming of Jesus himself, and that was decent, but you know, you still had to use a center channel, and it used this funky algorithm that robbed 9 dB of dynamics from the left and right channel in order to sum the center. Yes, it was a trade-off, and yes, it could get imaging in all the seats, but at the same time, your realism suffered. It's rare to be able to get proper two-seat imaging in a car without modifying the car itself. And if you're driving a daily driver with A-pillar mounted mids and tweeters, and you threw a center channel in the front, and you're using some sort of algorithm, I don't know. It seems like it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. Car audio is all about compromise.
Right.
Okay. If you're going to do sound cue at this level, you have to be able to compromise, and you have to be able to work around your car's acoustics and understand your car's acoustics. And it's only after you master the reflections and the reflective properties of the fishbowl that you're sitting in, that is the anti sound cue environment. Okay. Only after you master that can you achieve real sound quality, in my opinion. And even now, I'm still striving to do it. Now, granted, I'll be the first person to admit, you do not see me trying to do sound cue 2 or 2-seat in that Blazer. That is not what it was built for.
Right.
I will never, ever, ever do sound quality in that current setup in 2-seat. Why? Because it does not work. You can't just throw a center channel in something and throw a processor in something and say, here, I have 2-seat. No, you don't. No, you don't. What you do have in the Blazer is realism. And I'm trying to model it after a home audio experience or an actual live venue. And you know, I want it to sound like you're not in a vehicle. I want it to sound like there are no boundaries to the soundstage. I want it to sound like there's real musicians in front of you, real life tactile qualities, real life sizes, things that give you microdynamics and decay and stuff that you only hear in uber high-end audio systems at home. Okay. That's what drives me, and that's why I keep competing, is because I'm trying to get better, 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 better.
Right.
That's the whole premise behind sound cue, and that's why I still do it at age 55. Yes, I'm 55. I earned all this gray competing against all these guys. You know, I mean, I've named all of these guys. There's one for Natan. There's one for Dan Merritt. It's in there. I got one over here for Chris Pate. I got all those guys. Okay. And I got mad love for everybody. Mad love. But you're asking me my opinion, and that's my opinion. And I'll be
I think you'll find everywhere in car audio, a lot of us might have differing opinions, but there's a lot of guys that, you know, they make success out of how they do it, and that's not, you know, you can't take away from that. But I think it's just like anything in life, there's more than one path to the same spot.
absolutely, absolutely. Now, um, to get back to your question, you said, was sound quality harder back in the day? I think I answered that. Absolutely, yes.
Right.
Is sound quality at a level today that I think we've never seen before? I would say yes. There's more cars that can really shock you and wow you today than there were back then. Back then, it was just a handful of guys, because most of the systems had issues, but certain ones that had it dialed in you got out of there with your jaw on the ground saying, holy shit, I got to go back to the drawing board in my stuff. Cause what this guy's doing, holy shit, um, it's crazy. So anyway, you asked me about the Civic, you asked me about the green meat, you asked me about the Aspen. We talked a little bit about the Blazer. Everybody who's competing now should know that there's a yellow Blazer that says Audio Nuts on the side that is, or was, I've spent the last decade trying to get it to the level it's at right now. And it's not without its own flaws, but at the same time, it's the best that I have been able to do up to this point.
Right.
Okay. In terms of creating that sensation of not listening to a stereo, but listening to a performance. And I keep trying to change things and keep doing little tweaks here, little tweaks there. Um, trying different absorptive materials in the install. That's the reason the install isn't flashy, because you've got hard surfaces detract from sound. So people don't understand, well, why don't you do a bunch of painted fiberglass? Well, I can't do that in sound quality because it sounds like shit because of all the reflections. So
Right.
you have to explain to them, why is the headliner plain and wrapped in the padded velour, and why is there so much deadening? Well, I mean, this is what it takes to get to those upper levels of sound quality, and I think everybody that's watching this knows what I'm talking about. I mean, rarely will you ever find a car that does well in the lanes that somebody just wrote a check for and picked it up 6 months later and it was ready to compete and they did nothing.
Right.
Rarely will you see that. Um, you know, even out of the gate, there's going to be problems that you've got to go back and address. Um, the last person that was perfect walked on water. That's so there's trial and error. And this face right here, this is the face of trial and error. Okay.
Right.
Everything that I've ever learned over the years is from working with guys like Bobby, like Scott, like Tony, for example. Russ, how can I forget sweet Russ? You know, install techniques, picking up little tips and tricks, watching the videos on, mobile solutions, and, all of this stuff can be used to hone your skills. But at the same time, you have to kind of train yourself on how these things can affect the overall performance of the sound system.
Right.
And is it going to, yeah, it's going to wow people, but will it add to or detract from the sum of your sound presentation? Yeah, I mean, I'm still learning to this day. Uh, there's things that people are doing now with tuning that, I'll be honest, I have a difficult time understanding. I mean, all pass filters. Yeah, it's the bee's knees. Do I use them? Nope. Do not. I'm waiting on somebody to show me, number one, how it can make my stuff better, because I've messed with it and it always makes the sound like it's processed, in my opinion. Always.
Like it's
Now,
overworked. Yeah.
yeah, does that make me a dipshit? Sure, I'm a dipshit. That's me. I'm the dipshit.
Right.
Have I monkeyed around with the JL Max? Sure. Have I monkeyed around with Barney? No, I have not. But I know people who have. You cannot tune a system using microphones. These are the only microphones that tune my vehicles. So if I win first place, it's because of these right here.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I'll use an RTA to find frequency peaks sometimes. Back in the day, I would use the RTA all the time, and that was wrong, and I had to learn from my mistakes. Besides, look at what my shirt says. It says sound guy, like a regular guy, only cooler. Okay. So, yeah. And of course, you have to have an insane love of music as the reason why you do this.
Right.
If you can't connect to the music emotionally, then why the hell are you doing this? I mean, I'll be the first person to say, if I didn't have this as my hobby, I'd be much more well off and a lot less debt than I am right now. Okay.
Fair enough.
But yeah. We didn't talk about my current big meat. Current
Yeah.
big meat is your reigning Mod Street SQL champion.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's a OEM position install, which most people don't really grasp, but those Dodges with the dash mounted speakers where they're canted in just a little bit, you get the right speaker up there and it will image very, very nicely if you, figure out how to tame your reflections. Also, I built an upfront subwoofer for it in the console. And this is an infinite baffle tin that's vented through the transmission hump. So it, is true IB to the outside of the car. All the amp rack and everything is tucked under the back seat, and it's a fully functional dually that I pull the trailer with.
Right.
That goes around the Aspen or the Blazer or other people's cars or little purple CRXs at SPL events or, stuff like that.
Right.
So that truck, I've been competing with that system for a few years, and it does pretty well. I mean, it's an OEM location vehicle. And remember
Right.
what I said earlier, if you want the top echelon of sound cue, you can't have factory stuff without modifying the vehicle. Well, that vehicle is not modified at all. So I'll take 12th place out of 30. I'll take 15th place out of 30. That's the
Right.
damn tow vehicle. I'm not trying to beat the best cars there with the tow vehicle.
Right.
But it is pretty fun when that thing gets,
I like how
yeah.
I like how pickup trucks sound in general myself, but I think it's mostly just the space. But yeah, I'm a fan of the pickup trucks.
Right.
I don't like it's probably just because I'm a big guy and they have space, but
Yes, sir. And I think no, you judged the Aspen at Steel Valley, I believe, with Tony.
yeah.
And you guys kind of liked it. You guys
Yeah.
kind of now the current system. I want to talk about that. The current system in the Aspen is a throwback to the old school install technique where we've got USD waveguides under the dash at exact mirror image locations, trying to maximize path length and kick panels for mid basses and an upfront sub. So I've been tweaking on that since you guys heard it at Steel Valley, and I think it's gonna shake things up this year. It's
I'm
pretty good.
interested to see what you're coming out with or what you're thinking in there. I know you're always up to something.
Well, I'm eager to have the old school guys like Harry uh, and maybe Brian and also some of the other guys like Howard and of course Tony. Who can forget Tony? Um, those guys that have dabbled with horns in the past, I'm eager to see what they think about how it sounds now. Now that I've had some time to address it, and it's hard for me to find time to devote to 3 different vehicles.
Right.
I mean, because I work full time. I mean, in 2010, one of the reasons why I sold the Civic in the first place was because I was preparing to go into physician assistant school. So I sold the Civic to a friend of mine who let his girlfriend drive it, and 2 weeks later she wrecked it.
Oh,
and
man.
I went back, but she wrecked it, so that was the end of that era.
Tony who, huh? Let's see.
Yep.
All right. If you guys got any other questions, shoot them. We're coming up on a little over an hour here. So,
Yeah.
all right. If you got questions,
Joe Wallace had USD waveguides in his Taurus. Yeah. I mean, I like all of the horn designs. I've got some some Veritas AccuWaves. I've got some Stevens Audio full bodies. I've got some. These are the USD Generation 2. These are still made of fiberglass without the roto mount. And the thing about it is I'm using them with modern day compression drivers. And to me, it seems like the modern day drivers, with the exception of the TADs, okay, I don't want to upset Harry if he's watching. Modern day compression drivers to me sound better than the old iron, ferret based diaphragms that they had back in the day, in my opinion. But I could be wrong. I would love to get my hands on some TADs. That's TAD, in case you guys don't know what I'm talking about. But I think you do, because you're here.
Let's see. Yeah, that's the one he was talking about, Jeffrey, just a minute ago, the gold Dodge.
Yeah.
Or brown, but I think it's more of a gold color. Whatever you want to call it.
Philip Schleibach says, how do I have a vented 10 in a Mod Street SQL? Well, it's the subwoofer. The subwoofer can be vented wherever you want. It's the mid basses and mid range that can't have vents in Mod Street. Am I right?
Oh, I have to look.
Yeah.
I'd have to look that up, to be honest. I don't know that one off the top of my head.
Brian Gill is on here. Brian Gill, how's it going? You're another one that I've got gray hairs on. Here's your gray hair right there. Wallace too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm starting to see all of these comments over here.
Yeah, they're starting to come in now a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, let's see.
Subwoofers.
I think he's asking more about it being vented more than he's asking about where it's located. But that's the part.
He was asking about venting, Tony. Where's Wallace's gray hair? His gray hair is right here under my nose because it smells like shit. I'm just teasing. I got nothing but love for all of y'all guys.
For the most part, most of us do. I think that's what it's all about, really.
Yes, sir. I think everybody shares the same passion. Actually, no. Let me rephrase that. My passion's on a different level than most anybody. But that being said, our passions are the same. We love music. We go to these shows with the goal of having the judges or having our peers get out of our vehicles and say, holy shit, that sounded amazing. That's what drives me. And that's what drives most of us that are watching this right now. And I think they'll all tell you the same thing, is that we want the respect from our peers, and we want the judges to be wowed.
Right.
And I think overall we're moving towards having more judges trainings and whatnot, because some of these systems are doing things that aren't really understood by amateur and some veteran judges. I think that we all have a perpetually educating experience of sound quality. I'm still learning how to listen myself, but I think that our listening skills are evolving as a group.
Right.
Our tuning skills are evolving. Our system design skills are evolving. I don't necessarily like being forced to do install, but I can see how making install a requirement is going to help push the envelope and get it back to how it was previously. That's about it. I mean, we need a lot of variety in the lanes,
Right.
right? If we're going to attract spectators, we got to have something other than pillars and tire wells as our install. And I'm not saying pillars and tire walls aren't nice. I'm just saying that, um, you know, when you compare the show turnout from the 90s to the show turnout of recent, it's not even in the same league, not even in the same ballpark.
Right.
In terms of, because we were forced to do install back then. So your shit had to be right, and it had to be, on display, and it had to have attention to detail, and you were proud to show off the work. I don't know. Larry says, I love Steve. He sometimes tells me things I don't want to hear, but it's the truth. I love you too, Larry. You have you have several of my hairs, but it was mainly when we were competing against each other. Now that you're part of my competition team, you're my SoundQ brother.
Well, is there anything else you wanted to go over with the folks? Better ask your questions now. I think Steve's a lot like most of us. We could probably sit here and talk for hours on end um, about our specific things that we do or whatever. So if you have a specific question that you'd like to ask while we've got Steve on here, make sure you do that. Um, I guess before I forget, I've been letting the guys choose who I'm going to pick next. So um, it's been, I think, last year world champion or somebody that won one of the club awards.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to give me a name, I'll see if I can get them to come on here.
I can give you dozens of names.
Well, I know that, but
You can put that hot stack of man cakes Brian Gill on here. You can put Sweet Larry up there. You could throw Joe Wallace up there. Hell, put Tony on the spot.
okay.
You know,
maybe I should have a competitor talk with Tony. I haven't really had him on here for that, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Tell him to take
And
his
and some of those other guys, I'll get to them for sure, because they're all guys that I think we could have an interesting conversation, especially about sound quality and helping build that. But right now, I'm trying to get through. When I started, I guess I told everybody a MECA world champion or somebody that won a club award last year. So I'll pick on Tony next, and then I'm going to take these other guys' names and write them down. And once I start getting close, or if I get a week where somebody can't come on or something like that, I'll reach out to one of those guys. And if I don't already have their contact, I'll reach out to you and see what we can do there.
Okay. I'll be happy to help. But yeah, you should check with Tony on which guys from this past championship.
Yeah,
If
I think I'm getting close to the because there's only, I think we have 5 or 6 sound quality classes, and then of course I get the install, but there's not near as many uh classes as we have in the other, in the sound pressure portion, or so there's not quite as many people to choose from, and some of them were fairly new this year.
right.
But let's see.
Hmm. Oh, there's a vote for not Tony. Tony, if Tony comes on, make sure that he takes the judging hat off and puts on his competitor hat and talk
Right.
about how he taught himself install techniques over the years, much like me, and got help from guys like Manville Smith from JL Audio, uh, Steve Teresi, and others over the years that really elevated his game. I think that would be a good history lesson. He actually started
I'm
competing.
not allowed to put my competitor hat on.
No,
No.
how come?
Shoot, they already don't like me. They think they don't like me now. Don't let me put that hat on.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
But anyways,
Well, we've been on for
we've been on for quite a bit, so I'm not seeing any other questions. And I mean, I've enjoyed the history and all that stuff. It was a lot of stuff in there, so I'll have to go back and look. I got to write Tony a script so he doesn't get lost.
Yep.
That's what somebody said, just joking. But um, I guess just to
Jeff,
kind of close.
yeah, Jeff just said, glad I can still put sentences together. Yeah, the fiberglass fumes haven't killed my brain yet, uh, or the Bondo dust and all that crap. So, yeah,
But
we'll see how we do this year. I think the Audio Nuts team, and by the way, I got to thank the guys that have stuck with me throughout the years. Okay, without Team Audio Nuts, I wouldn't be able to keep doing what I do. Um, those guys make the shows experiences that'll last in my memory forever.
right.
And I yeah, it's great to be featured, and I'm happy to be the face of all things nutty and sound cue. But I'm nothing if these guys aren't helping me in the background. Okay, Russ, Dwayne, Tony, Scott Ward, Kenny McCullough. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And if you're an audio nut,
Right.
Larry. I can't forget Uncle Larry. Um, our paths crossed in the past, but we've always had a mutual respect of each other, and I'm happy to call him a teammate. Same with Billy Gunn, Bill Gonzalez. We're bringing it. We're trying to get to the next level and trying to be a competition team that people will remember for a long time.
Right. Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking with me tonight, Steve. I'm not seeing any other questions here. I'm going to pick on Tony next, and then we'll start. I guess we'll just keep on going, but I lost my train of thought. You talked so much tonight, I don't know how to put my sentences together like they said.
I was just rambling. I mean, I'm passionate about this. I could talk for hours and hours if you guys want to.
Well, I'll definitely bring you on again because I can tell you got a lot of stories and a lot of things to talk about, and
maybe I could do like picture presentation.
Yeah,
show pictures, because remember, a lot of my photo albums are 5x7 and 4x6 print. Okay, we didn't have digital cameras when I started.
So, right.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do sometimes. I do need a script sometimes, Wayne. You're right, but I always wing it, and sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it does. I feel like tonight was pretty good, mostly because especially the last couple of weeks here, I've had guys that they really have a lot of knowledge on their own and a lot that they can talk about, and I kind of just let them take it over. So that's been kind of fun for me. I guess just to kind of close it out, you were the modified street world champion, and I think you also won the Gates Cup this year. So congratulations on that. We're looking forward to seeing what you come back with this season.
Yep. Last year I won the Culbertson Cup, and this year I had to hand it over to Nathan. So here's another Nathan right here, right there. And if you scroll down on the MECA Facebook page, the next post is a picture of me with my trophy standing there.
Yep.
Look, and my USD audio shirt. Thank you, Mr. Harry Kimura.
And all right. So appreciate you, Steve. And I'll let you sign out of here, and I'll get these guys going later.
Okay.
All right. So that was Mr. Steve Head. He's got a whole lot of good stories. Like I said, we could go on here with him for hours, I'm sure. With a lot of these guys that's been around a while, we can probably talk for hours. And even the guys that haven't been around a long time, I think once you get that bug and it bites you, you can sit and talk with somebody about your passion forever. So I think this was a really good show. I appreciate everybody watching with us this evening. Again, most of the rule books should be up hopefully by the end of the week or so. Sound quality for sure. Waiting on a few more of the guys on the R&E for dueling demos. The website is getting worked on finally, which I think I told you guys that last week. And I really think that's all I got right now. We're starting to get into the swing of things on shows being scheduled and things like that. However, the event system is broke on the web page right now. So keep your eyes out on the Facebook and stuff for flyers until I get that part of the website fixed. I guess we're going to, kind of wing it and rely on that. But I appreciate everybody. I hope you guys have a good rest of the week. And I think from here, you guys kind of know the drill. Appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you again next Tuesday with hopefully Mr. Tony Pasquale. And that's our head sound quality judge. But we're going to have a competitor talk and not necessarily a judge talk with him. So that should be pretty interesting. I know he's done quite a bit in his time too. So we'll get him on here next week and pick on him. But until then, keep it loud and clear, Mecha heads.